Good morning and welcome back to the Patchwork Crafter. So today we are going to be making some tabletop trees and I've got 3 different trees that we're going to be making, and I'm using items from the Dollar Tree that I picked up, some stuff from the Dollar General, and really just stuff that I got laying around the house because y'all, I have crafting stuff everywhere. It is insane how much crafting stuff I have around this house. So for the new year, I'm going to get organized and figure out what exactly I've got. And I got to quit shopping. I don't know. It's just like the dopamine from shopping is what gets me. But anyways, enough about that. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I hope you enjoy the projects. So we're starting out with just a piece of cardstock, and we're going to be folding this up into a cone. And y'all, I'm terrible at making cones. I never can get the tips quite like I want them to because I want them to be very pointy and crisp, and I never actually get them to that point. So I struggle with it a little bit, but I eventually get it into a cone. Okay, the next thing we need to do is grab our hot glue gun and glue down the edge right here so it doesn't unravel while we're trying to work with it. And then we need to trim up the bottom, and since I'm going to be making a smaller cone, I'm going to cut quite a bit off the bottom. And y'all, these cones are kind of slippery. They just fly away at all times. So after you get the bottom cut where you want it to be, you're probably still going to have to trim up the edges so that it will sit flat when we're ready to work with it. So step 3 is to go ahead and trace your cone onto a piece of cardboard because we're going to be making a base for it. And you also want to draw on some extra tabs so that they will hold on to your cardboard. Make sure that when you're cutting it out, you don't cut off those tabs, because I did do one earlier and I cut off the tabs, so I had to start over. Alright, so after you get everything cut, you want to make sure that your cone's going to fit on your base before you go any further. And then you're going to take those tabs and just bend them up. You might want to cut yours a little bit longer than I cut mine because I did struggle getting the glue on. And then after you get everything bent up, we're going to start hot gluing just those tabs to the outside of your cone. And definitely make sure that everything is glued down really well before you move on to the next step, because you don't want those tabs popping off and ruining your whole project. The next thing that we have are these stickable wall towels from the Dollar Tree. We're going to be leaving that backing on, but you want to go ahead and cut off that black border because that won't look good at all. And right here, my brain wasn't working. I was fixing to start cutting strips, but then I realized that I still had that black border on there, so I figured I better finish one thing before I started to do the next thing. Okay, so I got my little paper cutter tool out that I got from Amazon, and I'm going to be cutting this into 2-inch strips. If you don't have one of these paper cutters, you can use scissors. Just try to cut a straight line, however it works for you. Okay, so I was able to do this with 2 towels, but I did end up using there's like a little strip left over at the end that I had to use to finish this up. I recommend that you get 3 of these towels instead of just the 2. So the next thing that we have to do after we've got our strips cut is we need to go ahead and make some triangles, because we're going to be using triangles for our project. I'm just using my ruler off of my paper cutter, but if you don't have that, just a regular ruler will work. I just need a straight line because I can't draw a straight line. Alright, after you get all your triangles drawn, you want to go ahead and cut those out. I cut mine out 1 strip at a time, but that is probably not the smartest way to do things. So go ahead and get all of your triangles cut, and I promise you it'll work out better in the long run. After you get your triangles cut, we're going to start gluing them to our cone. Now this first one I did put on flat, but for these pieces I recommend that you kind of bend them a little bit before you put them on there, and that's going to make them adhere better to the curve on your cone. All right, when we start this second row, we want to alternate the tips. So the points on the second row are going to be in between the 2 points on the first row. And we're going to work like that all the way up. You want to alternate your points all the way up on each row. Alright, and as you can see, it's coming all together nicely, but I did run out of the 2-inch strips. So I'm having to use these 1-inch strips, and I'm going to cut some smaller triangles out of this to finish up the top. And it works, but like I said, go ahead and buy 3 and just use the bigger triangles across the board. After we get the top done, we have to create a point, because like I said earlier, I'm not good with making my cones have a point at the end. So what I'm just doing is folding a couple of the pieces around the top, and I mean, you can see it better than I can explain it, so just watch. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention here, on those couple of pieces that I'm making the tip out of, I did take the backing off of so that it would kind of stick together, because I do have to pull it back off to glue the whole tip back down. Alright, moving on to our base, I'm just taking my drill and I'm drilling a hole through the piece of cardboard at the bottom, and we are going to be using a dowel rod to stick up in there, and then we are also going to be using one of those wood rounds from Dollar Tree that looks like an actual piece of wood, and we're going to be drilling a hole in that as well. And this is probably not the best idea I've ever had, because I could have gone through my table, but I wasn't thinking about that. And if that wasn't bad enough, this is an even worse idea, because I could have gone through my finger. But I did manage to get everything done without hurting myself or my table. So just learn from my mistakes and think before you do stuff. And just when I thought I was finished, nope, I had to go back and take that tree off and mix up some nutmeg brown and some water so that I could stain the base and the dowel rod. So that finishes up our first project, and we will be moving on to the next project. For our next project, we have 3 of these dish towels from the Dollar General, and they cost me $2 a piece. And I'm just going to put this towel on my table to keep myself from burning the table. I almost drilled a hole in it. Now I want to burn it. But I'm going to be ironing out all of the folds in these towels. And how cute is that dish towel, y'all? It's got that little Merry Christmas sign on that I'm going to be using in the next tree, and I just love it. After we have everything ironed out, we are going to be using these patterns that I'm going to upload to my website so that y'all can have access to them. And we're going to be making some trees out of those dish towels. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the biggest one, and I'm going to be folding my dish towel to where my pretty little sign is on the inside. And then I'm going to be tracing my pattern on the outside, the back side. It's going to be on the inside so you don't see the lines. And I'm just using a red pen. You probably want to use some kind of erasable fabric marker to do this. And then you don't have to worry about the lines. But since I don't have that, I'm using this red pen. And it doesn't bleed through, so I'm lucky there. But I do need to hide my pen lines. Alright, so after we get our pattern drawn onto our fabric, we want to go ahead and cut out that pattern. And y'all, I love these scissors. This is the only pair of fabric scissors that I have been able to keep expressly for fabric, because it seems like every time I get a pair, the kids use them to cut paper or sticks or just anything. And this one, because of the pretty gold, they don't touch. I love these. Alright, and while I'm cutting out this pattern, I just want to go ahead and say thank you to anybody that is still watching the video. I know it's one of my longer ones. If you like the video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and make sure you hit the little bell so you get notifications when I upload a new video. Okay, now we need to flip both of our patterns over so that it's right side out, and we're going to start gluing around the edges. So when I'm gluing, I like to start from the top, and if you can see, I'm getting really close to that edge because I don't want to have the glue so far in that I can't get any stuffing up in there. So just go around the edges a little bit at a time and glue around the edges really close until you get to the bottom. And when I get around to the bottom, I don't want to glue that bottom closed because I need to have a spot to put my stuffing in. And I need to have a spot where I can actually fit my hand up. So I leave the whole bottom open to start with. And here we're just going to go ahead and stuff the stuffing in. And you want to make sure that you get those tips really stuffed good and the bows of the tree so that everything looks really nicely stuffed. And while you're stuffing, you can see where you missed your glue and go back and put that in. Okay, now before I get it completely stuffed up, I'm going to start closing up this bottom so that I can make sure I get those bows. I don't know how I'm saying it, but I need to get that those bottom corners stuffed. So I'm adding a little bit more stuffing here before I finish closing it up. And I'm still not going to close it all the way because I have to be able to get a dowel rod up in there. So when you go to glue the bottom shut, leave about, I don't know, maybe a ½ inch opening so that you can get this rod up in there. And just like I did the last one, I'm going to be staining this with just some nutmeg paint and some water. And I'm going to use that and push that up through my tree. And then I'm going to finish closing up the tree around the dowel rod. And I got kind of lazy here. I didn't want to go out to the car and get another wood round, so I'm going to be using this flat little piece of wood that I had laying around the house. Like I told you, I have stuff everywhere, and we're going to be drilling a hole just like we did in the last video. I lost that footage, so you'll have to use your imagination, or you can go back and look at it. Alright, our third project is going to be more of a rustic tree. We need a stick from outside, that leftover garland from the wreath that we made, a pair of wire cutters, a pair of scissors, and this is a different pair of scissors, and a glue gun. And I think that about covers it. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is we need to cut our garland into pieces. And I'm just using the ruler from my little paper cutter. But what we're going to cut here is 2 10-inch pieces, 2 8-inch pieces, 2 6-inch pieces, 2 4-inch pieces, 2 2-inch pieces, and 2 1-inch pieces. Alright, so now we're fixing to make a little bit of a mess. What we're going to do is we are going to give all of these little pieces that we just cut out a little bit of a haircut. So I'm just fluffing them out, and I'm going to trim around the edges to kind of make them a little bit more sparse because I don't want them to be so fluffy. And I'm cutting them down to about, I'm guessing about a 1/2 inch. But however short or long you want to make them, that is completely up to you. Okay, and now we're just going to go ahead and lay out our pieces and separate pieces, obviously, and get them kind of where we want them to be on our stick. And then we're going to put our stick on top of it, and we're going to be marking this. I'm using these wire cutters just to mark where I want my pieces to be so that I can go ahead and glue them in the right spot. Now we're going to grab our glue gun, and we're going to add a little bit of glue to every spot where I marked, starting at the top with the smallest piece. And I gave it probably about an inch and a half in between, because what I'm going to be doing is when we flip it over, I'm going to be alternating it and putting the other branches that we have on the other side in those spaces, if that makes any sense. If it doesn't, you'll see in a minute. Look here, y'all, my brain finally kicked in, and I actually decided I would start using those pliers to hold that hot glue instead of burning my fingers every time I wanted to hold it down. Don't ask me why it took so long. Sometimes I'm a little slow. Now, if you like a sparser tree, you can just stop right here and go ahead and put your base on it. But I want to fill mine up just a little bit more. So I am, like I said, going to flip it over and fill in those gaps with the other branches that we cut. And I got these berries from the Dollar Tree that we're going to be using shortly. But before we use those, I'm going to go ahead and take some of this antique white acrylic paint, and I'm going to dry brush it on the branches of my tree to kind of make it look like it's got the flock look, or you know, like a little bit of snow on it, or you know what I mean. And I'm doing both sides, and don't ask me why, because I'm not going to be putting berries on both sides of the tree, but for some reason I felt like I needed to do the front and the back. And for finishing touches, I'm just taking those berries and pulling them apart, and I'm just putting one every here and there. I actually put a lot on there. But I'm doing single berries, not clumps of berries, because I felt like the clumps of berries were it was just too much in one spot. So I'm pulling them apart and putting single berries all around the tree. And finally, I just drilled a hole in one of those wood rounds to hold my tree up. Okay, so here is a look at our finished crafts. I want to just say thank you to anybody that is still watching. Again, I know this has been a long video, but I did cover 3 different projects. I appreciate your support. I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed making it, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.